President Bola Tinubu warns against nullifying Nigeria's February 25th election. He says doing so on account of the fact that he did not score 25% of lawful votes cast during the election in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, could lead to absurdity, chaos, and anarchy.
There will be anarchy in Nigeria if we nullify my victory as a president. Tinubu tells Tribunal. Mr. Tinubu acknowledged that he did not receive 25% of the vote cast in Abuja, the capital of Nigeria, but he said this was insufficient to reverse the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) declaration of his victory. Any other interpretation different from this will lead to chaos, anarchy of this country. Mr. Tinubu lawyers, led by Wole Olanipekun, said in their final defense statements to the court, the lawyer will specify addressing a section of the Nigeria Constitution that said a president candidate must score 25% of votes in 2/3 of Nigeria 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, or Abuja. Mr. Tinubu's team said court has always been careful about extreme interpretation of the Constitution that could spark chaos and anarchy in the country.
In his final written address, the All Progressives Congress Party and Tinubu urged the Presidential Election Petition Court to dismiss the petition filed against his electoral victory by the Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi. Tinubu slams Obi's petition as frivolous and crass abuse of court processes. He says the People's Democratic Party presidential candidate's petition is without form or substance, characterized by repetitions, contradictions, and confusion. Rufai.
So, you see, the way we carry things, I think those are just the depositions of his lawyers. Because we've put that out there as being hysterical. No, and nobody has the right to be able to gag the judiciary. It is the judiciary that will make the decision. And that's why the eye of the world is on the judiciary. A lot of people have interpreted the 25% in various ways. But the truth is, it is the judiciary that will determine how it's going to interpret the 25%. But what will fall on the judiciary now is to do what is right. One, in the sight of God. Two, in the sight of the law. So once the judiciary can do that and bring that level of accountability, but other things about, they were contrary repetition, that's his final case. Those are the final depositions of President Tinubu's lawyer at the Presidential Election Tribunal. Let's see how the judiciary rule. And I don't think any decision will cause anarchy.
Now, as for the case in court, yes, Presidential Election Tribunal. On July 5, after the petitioners closed their defense and called their witnesses, Atiku Abubakar and the PDP called about 27 witnesses. The Labour Party and Mr. Peter Obi called about 13 witnesses. So Justice Samani and others on that tribunal gave 10 days within which, the APC and President Tinubu should respond to the issues. And what has happened before the tribunal is the APC and President Tinubu presenting through Wole Olanipekun SAN, their lead counsel, their written address. And what Olanipekun SAN did in that written address is just to respond to all the issues. The prayers of the petitioners. The petitioners were asking, for example, that Section 134, sub 2B, should be interpreted by the tribunal disjunctively, conjunctively, but, disjunctively. But Wole Olanipekun is saying, no, that's not the intention of the legislature, the framers of the law. The framers of the law did not say you have to get 25% from the FCT. So he has this response to that. So it's up to the tribunal to decide one way or the other. And he quoted Section 299, which says, the FCT should be treated as if it's a state. Okay? He quoted Section 3 sub 6, which listed all the states, and the side note to that Section 3 sub 6. And then, of course, Section 66 of the Electoral Act. Now, these are the responses before the tribunal to consider. Two, he said the issue about Tinubu having been asked to return for $60,000 by a U.S. district court, that is of no issue, because in fact that particular ruling was not registered under the law. here in Nigeria. And that secondly, that ruling being referred to has no reference to a fine. So, which will mean that his client, was not in any way convicted in any U.S. district court. Number three, it questioned the credibility of all the about 40 witnesses, called by the petitioners, and said many of those petitioners had no point. They should be disregarded. He raised the issue about electronic transmission. He said, look, the law says there is manual transmission. So you can't base everything on IREV and BVAS, and that generally the petitioners were bringing up issues that are alien to the electoral laws of Nigeria. It's not as if they were questioning the credibility of the process, which they themselves admit, and that in the eyes of the law, there is substantial compliance, with the electoral process, and that to that extent, the petitions by both Mr. P2B and Waziri Atiku Abubakar and other parties to their petitions should be dismissed as an abuse of, crass abuse of court process, he says, and as something that is vexatious, and that there are prayers that the election should be nullified on the basis of their interpretation of Section 134(2), should be disregarded because that is unknown to law. So there will be interesting outcomes by the time the tribunal rules on all of these matters. So before the tribunal now, all the parties have presented their cases. It's for the tribunal to declare. But I see the newspapers, played off the thing about anarchy and all that. But when you read that portion of the written address, it's not as if, the counsel to APC and Tinubu, it's not as if they are threatening. They are just saying, look, you have to interpret the law as in line with the intention of the lawmaker and not import what is not in the law to it. So it's a battle of wits among lawyers. Let their lordships decide. And then, of course, this is not the end of the process. When the lordships decide, the matter can go to the apex court again. And, it just takes us back to the same point about, look, why don't we determine all these petitions before inauguration? That will not give too many people anxiety, and there will be certainty. Look at the momentum that the government has generated. And I keep saying that the apex court of Nigeria is a policy court. And that was what Olanekweku SCN was insinuating, saying that if you look at a plethora of cases, Abraham Adesanya versus President of the Federal Republic, Awolowo versus Shagari, Buhari's case too, the court is not there to cause chaos or anarchy. That's the subtext of what he was saying, that the purpose of the court is to promote peace. But okay, don't let's jump ahead of their lordships. We'll see, how this is resolved.
Now, with regards to the petition, the presidential petition court, we have seen that play out in the past few weeks. An interesting outlook, despite the fact that a live transmission of the proceedings was not allowed or not permitted by the courts. Still, thanks to new media, we have seen quite detailed reports of what has ensued in the courts. And as been said, this headline around chaos, anarchy, absurdity by the responders would suggest that this is what they are pushing for. We must remember that even before the elections, this conversation had been had. It had even torn the opinions of lawyers, of SANs who had argued the fact as to disjunctive or conjunctive, what would the interpretation of that be? But again, as has been said, all eyes on the judiciary. What Nigerians are looking forward to is that the judiciary, yes, in the promotion of peace, would work in the interest of fairness and equity and in the interest of Nigerians. So despite the arguments put forward by responders or petitioners, it is important to understand that at the end of the day, they say that the judiciary or the courts or the law is the last resort of the common man in Nigeria. We hope that this will play out at the end of the day. What Nigerians are looking forward to is fairness, equity, and justice.
This is ODUA TV Watch. Don't forget to subscribe, comment your opinion, like, comment and share so that other people can get access to what you enjoy on our channel. Thank you. We love you.